Welcome to the 21st Men, where we're redefining masculinity through the 4 pillars of modern manhood. That's entrepreneurialism, masculinity, integrity, and community. So today is our premiere of our season 2. And what that looks like is that we're going to air an episode never before seen from our season 1 cast. Where we talked about race, inequality, and the masculine experience. What's race got to do with it? Enjoy. Hey, welcome to the 21st Men. My name is Vince, and today we're talking about diversity. Strictly, what does it mean to be a black man? What does it mean to be a white man? What does that look like for Latinos? How does that look for you, the viewers who are watching, and all your answers? So while we do that, just to let you know, this is the cast, and we're going to start off with some controversial topics. So viewers at home, please be patient with us, understand, and I appreciate you so much, and note that we're here to really just have a conversation. So guys, one of the biggest things that we're going to talk about today is a very big sensitive topic, talking about different things that men of color go through and how that pertains to men who aren't of color, and how that looks based on your upbringing, all of that, from the perspective of your skin color and how that has affected you, and is your skin color your culture? And that's where we're going to go for this episode today. What's first on the agenda is, what does it mean for you to be a black man?
Oh, look at me now, okay. There's other black guys here. Now, honestly, I grew up in a really, really interesting dynamic. My mom, I grew up, most black men unfortunately grow up in environments where they just have their mom raising them, and I was actually part of that stereotype. My mom raised me alone, and she did a good job actually sheltering me from racism, actually. As a matter of fact, growing up, I thought I had it pretty good at first, and as I got older is when I realized how much my skin color affected my everyday life. As a matter of fact, when I was very young in middle school, I had this white boy that would actually chase me through the neighborhood and threatening to hurt me. And I never knew why. I just figured he didn't like me. And it got to the point where he would actually make me stand on the other side of the bus stop in the morning. And I remember when I first realized it was because of my skin color. And it just blew my mind. I was so confused by it. I was like, I literally looked at him like, wait, so you don't like me because of my color? And I was just so young and naive. I was just like, really? And so, I mean, that's the beginning for me of recognizing, wow, my skin color is actually altering my everyday, interactions with people. So, to me, I realized it is great. It does influence, unfortunately, my everyday life.
Do you feel like it might give you perspective in like your culture? Does it actually matter that is your blackness also your culture? Let me put it that way.
Is my blackness also my culture? I mean, I wouldn't so much say my blackness and my culture are one. I do think they greatly influence each other, for sure. So,
what about you, Wes? What does it mean for you, like, to really express what does it mean to be a black man in America?
For me personally, being a black man in America means to have a whole lot more resilience, a whole lot more pride in how you display yourself in ways that you have to just introduce yourself to people so that they know not to try you on different levels. It also is a wide gap in just where a black man comes from, a loss of history, a loss in family structure. I feel like it's a whole lot of hurdles that you have to overcome at a very young age, younger than I think you should have to. it's a whole lot of responsibility that you have to take on before you get to the age to maybe even process why you're taking on it.
So what is your view of subsequent movements like the Black Lives Matter movements and the movements that have been started originating in a way that is supposed to shine light on certain characteristics of Black culture and Black struggle? Do you align with those movements?
I align with my own movements, but I have no problem with those movements. I think that with the right intent, that any movement can move mountains and bring forth, just bring forth whatever motive they have. But I think with the wrong intent behind it, without the right education, without the right accord, everybody on the same page, I think still the movement can still segregate people and not bring to fruition what the original motive was.
That's good. What about you, Justin?
Yeah, first of all, I think this is good we're able to actually share this because I didn't know, my other brothers felt the same, That's honestly what I've gone through. I remember in school, I had kids that were, white. I would consider them as friends back then, but some of the stuff, thinking, they did as I got older, I realized, a lot of it was prejudice. I remember even as like a kid in like, be like 8 or 9, first time I heard the word, the N-word, and I didn't really know anything about it. I went home and told my mom, and she flipped. She called me daycare or whatever, and that was my first, I guess, introduction into maybe some racism. But I think it does help shape the way you kind of look at everybody, and it almost like prepares you for some of the battles you gotta deal with later in life.
Do you feel like it affects you today as far as being Black?
I think it does.
How?
Again, I think you just have the memories, even if it's somebody new. You may not let that affect you, but I think it's still there.
So as Black men, do you guys feel like the white man or the man that isn't Black is to blame for the way that things are? Or do you believe that it is the establishment to blame?
I'd say, it's part of the system in which we're a part of, and the establishment is a part of that, because it's a part of the system. But I think at its core, to really get to the core of it, it's a spiritual thing. I believe there's a spiritual battle that's there to separate. It's going to use whatever necessary. I can't blame a white person for, past actions, especially when that white person's ancestors is, it's just really it was them more so than the ones I'm seeing now.
Right.
And so I think it's just we've kept the system in place that was in place back when things were a little bit harder for people of color, and all we did was add on top of the system instead of honestly kind of changing it at its core. And so we just added laws, and laws are great and they help, but at the same time the spirit still exists, and we didn't go to the core, which is the actual spirit itself.
What do you think about the Wes? Rakim, what do you think about the idea of tearing down statues? Do you think that they should remove those statues?
I think it might be, I think that might just be a public, a public gesture to maybe cure the cause, but at the same time, like Rashad just said, you're not touching anywhere near the core. You can,
Right.
We could have the next 5 presidents can all be Black. It's still not gonna change what's wrong in this world. It all starts with individual. It starts with our education. It also starts with how we view ourselves. So I I think it might be a nice gesture, it might satisfy the movement, but I don't think it's really touching the problem.
Do you think that Latinos go through the same struggle that black people go through?
To an extent.
Tell me about that extent.
I believe there's a big prejudice towards Latinos. There's a lot of stereotypes that we all can piggyback off for jokes, but there's truth in a lot of those. But at the same time, there's two different cultures. There's different things that we go through. I think colored people, period, as a whole, can relate to a lot of the oppression we all face, but it's just different, in my opinion.
So are you saying that Latinos are also considered colored people?
I would. Yeah.
In many ways, I'd say so too, yeah.
So now I ask, does the attribution of like prejudice and racism and colorism, since it does cross lines, right? Does that really have to do with a person being Latino or black? Or does it have to do with the level of melanin in their skin?
I'd say the level of melanin. I mean, because guess what? When you go to fill out an application, sometimes there's a section that says Hispanic white. I've never seen black white. I've never seen Asian. I've never seen none of that.
I've never seen that, what you're talking about.
You've never seen Hispanic white?
I've seen an ethnicity box that says Hispanic or Latino, and then race comes down below. And there is all these races, and none of them, every single one of them say not of Hispanic or Latino origin, including white, including black, including Pacific Islander, including that. And at that point, you're taking what you've been raised around, what you feel comfortable with. So I didn't know that what you're talking about existed, but that's how I've always seen an application.
What's great, everybody, is Mr. Al Peter, Mr. Peterson's Neighborhood. We recently collaborated with The Sound of Duval to play some of the podcasts from the Neighborhood Podcast Network. This will happen on Sundays from 8 p.m. to midnight. So you can listen at soundofduval.com and on the Sound of Duval app that you can download from your app store. Every Sunday from 8 p.m. to midnight, catch some of the cool podcast shows from the neighborhood. Make sure you follow Sound of Duval for their weekly shows and content. This be the moves, y'all. Enjoy. To the top.
Let's just talk, bro.
Let's get at it.
If I'm being black, does it matter? Do you want a deep love? Does it matter? Is in your everyday life, does it matter that you're black? To you? You know, how does that look? What does it look like? Talk.
I feel like I'm reminded every once in a while, like just going throughout my day. Like if I even walk into work, I know people. Maybe if I see somebody new, you know, to just come pop in my head, like, why are they looking at me like that? Is it because I'm black or whatever? That's just something that I think about.
Once upon a time, I would say it actually did not matter. But I was raised. Well, this is what I mean by that. I was raised really differently. And so when I walk into a room, like I can literally be the only black guy in the room, and that won't even be a thought in my head. When I was raised up originally, it wasn't really as they say, see color. Mm-hmm. Like I would see it, but it wouldn't click in my head. Oh God, I'm the black guy in this room, and they're gonna think this, and it would get to the point to where I would look around and something would happen and to where it was obvious, it was pointing out that I was the only black guy in the room. I was like, oh yeah, I'm the only black guy in the room. Oh, I forgot about that. Like, that's literally the way I was originally brought up.
Out of curiosity, how does that feel? I'm just curious. How does it feel to be the only black guy in the room? Because I obviously you've been in that environment before. I'm just curious how.
You never been
the only black guy. Yeah, I wonder what you're talking about, man. What is it? Is it timidness? Is it fear? Is it like this is kind of cool? Is it, or are you like, man, I'm uncomfortable? I don't know.
Is it different for all of you?
Because I'm the only white guy in the room, and I can tell you that experience later on. But I just want to hear what your thoughts are. I'm the only white guy in the room now. Just like Kevin.
I would beg to differ.
Honestly, it depends on which room I'm in and who else is in the room with me. If it's a room full of black people, just being honest, I'm already on alert. It depends on what type of black people I'm around. I'm on alert of, is this about to turn real? What do I need to show you that I'm about? If I'm in a room full of, level-headed people, I'm still going to be gauging vibes. It depends on what room of people I'm in.
That's a good point. If I walk in a room full of Confederate flags and long black beards and biker gear on, like I'm probably gonna have some thoughts like, should I be here right now?
Like, let me ask you something, and this is a question I always had. The fact that you think that's something on your mind. It's a stage of mind, yours. Not that probably he sees you. You could be the only black person in the room, and nobody cares that you're the only black person in the room. And you the one, like you said, like, man, I'm the only black guy in the room. Because that Hispanic, that happened to Hispanic too, or white, like he mentioned. So do you think it has to do more with your mind? How you thinking? You mentioned something really good. Your brought up is different, so you probably don't feel that way, but you guys for a
So
second.
wouldn't that question be very relative to anybody of color at that point?
No, definitely. But the reason I'm asking is because I've talked to a lot of friends of mine that are black, and they always have that defense on, their armor on, and it goes to the point, bro, you don't need to be so rough or sore because you're putting yourself in that position. Yeah. You are the one encapsulated in your mind because everybody's against me, the world's against me. When realistically, probably the world's not against you. That's what I'm asking. Do you think that has to do because you mentioned something really important, that's why I'm not asking you, I'm asking you to, is that the brought up is really different. If they brought you up in a way, he said he doesn't see color at that moment, and what about you, Rakim?
I was raised in a very diverse religion, full of all different races, but growing up out of that, aside from that, my personal life, I had a conversation with a guy that I used to work with at SafeLight, and he asked me, do you think the mindset that we have, being prepared to be black in the situation we'll be in, do you think that it keeps the issue alive? Mm-hmm. But I told him I returned that because, you won't understand unless you are one. That actually helps keep us alive. It helps me keep my culture alive. If I don't teach if it's not, my children, but maybe my group of friends or just myself, if I don't go out into life with that mindset, reminding myself you are a black man, you can't walk into certain stores with your hands in your pocket, you can't be around this neighborhood at this time of night, things like that, then if I'm walking around this world like I'm not black, like I'm naive to what the world is, then I'm not going to be alive. So I might be keeping the issue alive, but I'm also keeping myself alive.
So you don't think that also is going to make you always stay angry?
Not angry, but prepared, yeah.
Prepared,
awake, all of that.
I respect that.
But it can do exactly what you're saying.
But it does that as well.
Lead people to stay angry, and you've seen it in firsthand. And it's really just a matter of how you look at it. Like there's walking in fear, and then there's just being conscious. Like, wait a minute, this does happen. So that's literally what I had to get to. I never walked in fear. That's all. It was normal to me. I walked around. I was like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm the only black guy in the room, and I had to switch to let me be conscious now because I got to remember these people believe this. Like I've literally had a guy sit down right in front of me and look at me and go, Rashad, I didn't like black people till I met you. Straight up, and I was just like, where do we go from here? I don't even know. Thanks. But it's just being conscious of. Wait a minute, people have different upbringings.
So, to ask this question, when do you differentiate between a certain type of white person from another type of white person? Do you think that would lead into racism? Just like if we differentiate another black person from a different type of black person, do you think that filters into a racist mindset, or do you think that's a different thing?
I think that's easy for you to say.
It can do that, but you have to have the right mentality. I think like this: believe for the best, but be prepared for the rest. Sure. That's how I think. So I walk into a situation where it's possible it could be who knows what,
right.
But that just makes me be more empathetic and loving towards them. Because the only thing I've ever found to work the best when it comes to finding out how people are is empathy. It's love. And when I choose to love them in spite of them, then I learn the most about them.
That's good. To kind of add to what he was saying, I look at things similar. I'm sorry, can you read?
Well, so is it racist to define an individual based off of their clothing the way they walk, the way they talk, as opposed to just their skin color. If it isn't racist for an individual to look at it, he can get the Confederate flag and motorcycle outfit stereotyping. Is it racist to judge somebody from your perspective?
Like, does it cause segregation for you to say?
Or do you think that's fair? Is it fair game? And he was saying best to be prepared. I don't know if that's the same you.
That just brought into mind, a lot of people look at me and assume that I'm, what's the word? A lot of people assume that I'm very, the way that I dress, the reason that I dress the way that I dress, the reason I present myself to different types of people the way that I do is because I'm already conscious of what you might think of me if I don't dress this way, if I don't present myself at a certain level of etiquette, things like that, intelligence. Because I need people when they meet, I don't need them to, but when somebody meets me, I want you to understand that I'm on the same level that you're thinking, probably higher, but at least address me right here. If you don't know to respect me because of what I'm wearing, let me wear something that you have to respect. Let me address you to where you'll have to respect me.
And let's be honest. I mean, to act like even us as men of color, when I see someone dressed really preppy, my first thought isn't, oh no, like, because there's so many associations with dressing a certain way, dressed up, that are actually aligned with more, less aggression, when it comes to racial, tension.
I'm gonna make it. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I was just agreeing with him, like, because he was talking about, does it have, remember in the beginning of our conversation, he said, does it have to do with the system itself in place? He used the word, actually, it wasn't system. Establishment in place.
I walked into Grub Burger the other day and I checked the entire place and counted one black person or man of color. Person of color. I will check the room immediately. And that's just my first thing to do.
And I think it honestly has to do with like what you focus on. You know what I mean? For instance, people that focus on building businesses, they're always looking for ways to find, like, any conversation, they're thinking, oh my gosh, we could literally build a business around this, right? Or people who are just fun, they're always finding a way to put a joke in it, And I think the same thing that we do that when we go into places, if we're very cognizant of color, right? So for instance, it's just that when he walks in, the first thing he does is he looks around the room and scans for color.
But not for fear purposes.
But just habitual. It's just something that you strongly focus on. And obviously being part of the 21st Man, I think that, being the person who brought this to light, it's something that you obviously are more cognizant and you think about on a daily basis.
I think about it because I want to protect myself.
But only, it goes back to what I asked Rakeem and brought up to the table. My opinion, and don't crucify me for my opinion, is that it goes back to your mind. Because you go into the joints, you go in and you start checking out. That's a mind thing right there. That's the state that your mind is.
Of course.
And it's like you have to decide: do I want to continue with this pattern, or I don't want to continue with this pattern? I want to continue having this, positive or negative fear, or not. I agree with what Chris said earlier, that then, has to go with color. For example, he mentioned the Confederate flag, bikers. I'm a biker, and I don't ride a sport bike. I ride actually a cruiser bike, and I associate myself with bikers here and there. So in a way, it comes back to stereotypes. And realistically, tell me if I'm wrong, you three guys, and you too, and anybody here in the table actually could say, there is also segregation or racism within our own culture, in our own race.
Yes, there is.
Yeah. Well, no, at that point then, aren't you categorizing yourself and identifying yourself as a race as opposed to an individual? If somebody called me Latino or black, and I've been called Latino occasionally, just like you might think. I've never once been offended by it or anything. I was curious if somebody says, "Hey, aren't you a black man?" Is that an insult, or is it just, "Hey, that's the color of skin"? I don't know.
No, it's funny.
You would say it's an insult, Justin?
No, I don't think it's an insult. Like, I think people think that I'm, Dominican.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Good. Let me ask you, if we take that away. You know.
The opportunities, right?
No. The color.
Okay.
Let's take out the color. Sure. You think will have a better impact on your end results?
Depending on the man, and then depending on if I'm going to an interview where a person doesn't know my race or anything about me, and I have the open ground to give you my own impression. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's not.
I think there's a lot of inner workings for that. I think that because I was a business owner, to touch base on the minority group, actually it flips around and it also categorizes and counts the amount of white people in there too.
Oh, sure.
And it's funny because I would hire a lot of minority because I just felt more comfortable working side by side, and that was just because I felt that way. But I think that's all. There's a lot of inner workings with that as a business owner.
You as a white person,
Well,
what's your opinion on that? Taking that away, how will you feel?
if they took the color away?
If it will give you help you advance, not advance,
You know,
equal the playing field, not equal the playing field.
now this is an opportunity for me to say something about what it's like to be a white man in America for a 2nd.
Here you go.
I think that first off, I come from a background where my dad's from Canada, so he's not really in American society. My mom was a teacher, very educated individuals, and so I was growing up in a very affluent household, but no racism was never a thing. However, growing up in Jacksonville, Florida as a white man, I can tell you what I've been surrounded by. And what you see a lot of times is, surprisingly, you see a lot of white guilt. That's a thing that actually exists in white people's minds about, they feel bad for the history of whatever happened in the past because we have to be associated with it. And it sucks, man, because there's a stereotype about white males, is that we're racist. I have to deal with that all the time. It's not necessarily something that I feel like a lot of minorities have to go through. Maybe you have, but there's a consistency of, man, he might be racist because he's a white man. And so with that being said, I love the opportunity, me personally, I love the opportunity for other people to advance and excel. So this way, not just clearing my conscience of white guilt, but understanding we're all on an even playing field now. There is white privilege out there, and I want my brothers and my sisters to have the same opportunities that I have. So that was the interesting aspect. But I want to bring this to another question for a second, and I'm going to drop this here because we're talking about the insult of being another race or identifying as another race. Do you have a problem with a white person, and I'm going to use quotations, acting black, as in trying to fit into a culture or acting Latino, or even vice versa, a black man acting white? And I use quotations because we know that's not a real thing, but we know that's what our society categorizes. I'm just curious what you guys feel about that.
That's
In the Latin side, I don't care.
No one does because
We don't care.
It's not a thing like I'm
I'm gonna be honest. I have friends of mine that are white,
Yeah.
straight up white, even from Canada. Everything.
Sure.
My second child godfather, he was white
Right.
in Puerto Rico. And he acted Puerto Rican. He wanted to be Puerto Rican. I felt honored.
Okay, yeah. You know what? You know why we do that? A lot of people do that in the white culture. Y'all are cool as fuck, man. so you try to be cooler.
Yeah, it's fact.
Hey, y'all
Facts.
usually good at sports and can dance and
Facts.
stuff. Like, yeah, man, it's stereotype. I'm gonna show, but we're like, man, the Latinos can dance. I might have a little Latino down there in the club. You know what I'm saying? But, so. With that being said, it isn't usually to dehumanize or be,
It's like I've been telling you, it goes back again to I'm gonna sound like echoing myself, but I'm a big believer of, and that's I live by it. When you stop or drop who you are or what you are, then you can become greater.
Sure.
Well, I would say that as a Latino, I take pride in it, and I think a lot of people want to be Latino, so that's why. But I also don't think we care as much as because we're family oriented. Where let me feed
We
you,
are exactly.
let me bring you in, let me talk to you, kind of thing. However, there is a line here where I get into the little thing, and I get a little mad at both sides. Because at the end of the day, we don't get credit for anything. And that is where not all Latinos feel this way, because a lot of Latinos have come under the assumption that it's okay to recluse and okay to just be family. And that has been the society from Jump Street. But I love to view myself as a Latino.
And that token that you just brought up actually is funny, because I was reading this news yesterday. So it came out that the Supreme Court has, brought up the constitutional equity to Puerto Ricans. Because over 100 years ago, the court denied that Puerto Ricans could have constitutional rights because they were aliens, they were considered less than equal.
Right.
Not because territorial, actually. It was because they thought they were less.
Okay.
We were not human beings.
Yeah.
And there's this, I could find you, the news and share with you guys later. It was a point where when they wrote it, they said they were less than black people.
That I really couldn't describe it to you, do your own research, but on the surface level of it, it directly impacts everything about who you are.
Okay.
It's connected to everything. I mean, down to let's keep it simple. You ever hear black people don't swim? The darker the black person is, the more likely they don't swim. And there's a lot of there's interesting with everything that's ever talked about. There's some type of truth connected to it, and when you look at it, people with more melanin actually have denser bodies, denser skin. So they actually do sink faster than someone who's of a lighter skin complexion. Doesn't mean they can't swim, but it does mean that it's derived from something in particular that has some truth attached to it.
So there's more difficulty in the process of swimming?
It can be, but at the same time, because of what a lot of people of, unfortunately, darker skin color have been through, our bodies have adapted according to what we've been through. So, slavery, for instance, there's a part of your brain, in the back of the brain, I forget exactly what it's called, but it allows you to be more submissive. And this part is actually enlarged on most black men in the back of their brain. And I believe that has a lot to do with what they've been through and the body adapting to creating now another being once you have sex with another person and bring life into the world. Creating another being that can more so adapt to what it's going through, which is normal. You're adapting even as you're alive. So you don't think your body's smart enough to do that once you're bringing life to someone into the world?
So microevolution. I'm talking about.
I wouldn't put it in a category.
I had a question for the table. Because there's all truths in all of our biases. Because this is, how many men are here? 7?
Mm-hmm.
7 different viewpoints. Do we respect one another's? Because I see, you know what I mean? There's a whole bunch of jokes and whatnot, but do we respect one another's viewpoints? Because there's truth in his bias, and no matter what comes out of your mouth, he's going to live his life from his viewpoint.
Right, of course.
Likewise, but what is the end point? What is our goal at this table? Is it respect? Is it?
It's understanding and listening and respecting and understanding that at the end of the day we need to know this in order to be able to communicate and love on one another.
Absolutely.
And that's what I want.
I think the objective for this table would be to try to be more open-minded and even be open-minded to change your viewpoints. I think my objective as the single white man at the table is I'm hoping the viewers for this can see that a white man can sit down with 6 other individuals who are not like me and find a relationship and a friendship, as well as my ability. I've learned so much from this conversation. I know he's getting frustrated with me speaking, but
No,
I've learned so much. I've learned so much that I'm going to change some perceptions of things, and I'm hoping that the viewers, the white viewers who might identify themselves on my side or whatever, will do the same thing. They can open up their mind and change their viewpoints. I think that's the objective here.